Regarding a very public campaign to discredit me, I will outline just a few things over the past 9 months. You can see clearly as I have uploaded the documents, there has been 10 incidents with evidence all reported, another 2 over the weekend. That's 12 incidents altogether. Despite offering statements and photographic evidence, none of these were investigated. And we all know why. And now the people involved have been directly linked to the cronies of David Conlan and also the Gardaí. This is to take up my time arguing about these fools, all the while the statute of limitations tick by. I have other complaints to address presently. I've spoken about how an employee in Tulsa and her husband were recruiting into a religion. I unfortunately got mixed up in this religion 2013-2014. The unethical practices of this husband and wife needs looking into. It was these people, in an effort to destroy my character, began this whole situation. It came to light the wife was involved in a case I was a witness in years earlier, so there was a gross conflict of interest here, which they're basically trying to cover up, and a major concern for her and also her husband. We all know what was done and how it was done. I've shown how my passwords were given to Tulsa. It leaves the question of how these passwords got from Tulsa into my ex and into the hands then of the 3 people that she was linked up with afterwards. This was all carefully planned out by this person in Tulsa, and that was recruiting for this Baha'i religion. As crazy as it sounds, rather than question why my ex would have my passwords or why she chose to drop the kids down for sleepovers while orchestrating this, how the 3 people who done all this, they only share one thing in common, which is that they met my ex 2 weeks before all this kicked off. So many people, organisations within Waterford were ever so quick to take my character and jump on the bandwagon of slander and gaslighting. They imply now it was some kind of a moral issue. And now they are getting called out and they're shown to be who and what they are to be. Where am I supposed to turn when I report incidents to the Gardaí with evidence and it's like not investigated? Certain people influence certain situation. My situation is deemed as it's only him, showing the reality of how the system works in Waterford. If this was a moral issue, the Gardaí would have been contacted when this was first begun in 2016. They weren't contacted. This is favouritism and cronyism. That's all it is. You have David Conlan talking of transparency regarding corruption and anti-favouritism, anti-corruption, anti-cronyism. These are just empty words. I addressed him in 2016 and I approached him about having a transparent investigation into all of this. He had no interest, but he could send my wife a friend request on the same day that he fobbed me off. This person's overinflated ego and glorified entitlement, where he deems himself untouchable, is a perfect example of cronyism and favouritism and hypocrisy. The sense that because he's linked to Sinn Féin and is beyond getting called out because he decides to blur the lines when it suits him regarding certain issues and on certain matters. The fact people abusing the power think that they have some right to influence or apply pressure to prevent investigations going ahead should be noted. The fact Waterford Council and such acted in such a manner towards my mother and myself, and they now feel that they have some form of protection once the members are linked with Sinn Féin. Is this what Sinn Féin are standing by? Is this the corruption and collusion that's going to be the Sinn Féin way? I'm supposed to tiptoe around certain people that destroys my character because they got involved in something that they can't back out of, partly because I won't bow down to the harassment and intimidation, on top of pointing out the hypocrisy of certain people. The actions of Waterford Council members who think they can hide behind Mr Conlan and his cronies, these people need to be investigated. The cronies of Mr Conlan from Barrack Street, who I had reported to Waterford Council 2 weeks prior to doing what they done, saying that they were in contact with my ex. The Gardaí attempting to cover the arse of Mr Conlan, stooping so low that they dealt with local criminals who, as we all know, for years has been terrorising the town. This needs investigating. This very act alone has empowered these criminals and has caused my safety and my family's an issue. I will go through a solicitor to address this further because clearly the guards are not doing what they should be doing. Do people honestly think if I left in the morning that the people involved would just go back to being non-corrupt? I didn't corrupt these people. These people were corrupt already. I'm supposed to have the same rights as the next person, but I don't have any rights in this. I have privileges, and the very people supposed to be upholding my rights are the very same people that are abusing my rights. The culture in Waterford of one hand washes the other hand, and we look after our own mentality, while they decide who have rights, while they are treated with special privileges themselves. I can report an assault with evidence in the year 2021 and it can be covered up. Is this a nationwide thing? Mr. Cullinane, I read your post about cronyism, favouritism, transparency with dealing with corruption. It doesn't get more corrupt than this situation right now. Where's your call for transparency now? Because it reflects on the local thugs associated with you and they get treated differently. Is this not cronyism? Is this not favouritism? I've never accused Sinn Féin as a group. I went as far as to write to Miss Mary Lou MacDonald and she advised that I should contact the guards. But I have an issue with someone within the political group that is trying to influence my case. If someone within a political group or organisation tries to influence a case or use the political power to pull strings, while they decide to make this as big as possible to create a smokescreen that hides their own actions, I will call that out. It's widely acknowledged how certain people abuse their power within Waterford, acting like a modern day Mr. Fixer, while the majority tiptoe around the situation out of fear of being harassed and this gaslighting that seems to be going on throughout the country. This seems to be a tactic that's going on all over Ireland and it needs to be called out of who's doing it. Am I now going to be silenced or threatened for speaking the truth? Because the actual truth could reflect badly on the careers and the pensions of the so-called people and professions that are involved in this. Where am I supposed to turn when I report incidents to the Gardaí with evidence and it's not investigated? Certain people influence certain situations. My situation is deemed as it's only him, showing the reality of how the system works in Waterford. You have a system in Waterford that's absolutely rampant with corruption. The divide between social classes being governed over by the very people who corrupted. I will let a solicitor now deal with the Gardaí because they're clearly not pulling their weight. I have my paperwork in for my complaints regardless and I intend to go ahead with this. If it seems I mentioned Mr. Cullinane a bit, I did. On purposely I mentioned it because this is the truth. I wanted to highlight my issue as I explained to Miss MacDonald. This issue, I have an issue with Mr. Cullinane and his cronies. Not all of these people, and I'm not accusing them of being cronies, but there's a certain group that's linked to Mr. Cullinane that have no interest in politics or no interest in history and just they're glorified thugs, if I'm being honest with you. And if I'm suppressed from telling the truth, people need to question why I'm being suppressed. The person at the heart of this, who was absolutely itching to do this, believe it or not, I intend pursuing a complaint against and is employed by Tusla. The people in the middle use as pawns. They should mind their own business. The culture of you cover my back and I'll cover your back that goes on in Waterford. I have rights, not privileges. To the subversive approach by various organisations and powers that be in Waterford is a major concern as it's not more than gaslighting. How solicitors, politicians, Gardaí, criminals can all share data and so quickly turn to one another when needing certain favours highlights the closeness of these parties and it should be investigated by an outside party, definitely. Any minister can push for a public inquiry. If Mr. Cullinane wants to throw his weight behind this request, I'd welcome any transparent investigation into this. The empowerment of certain local criminals by Gardaí and others alike, as I said at the beginning, has undermined the colleagues, especially CAB. I'll explain in further videos of who this person in Tusla that has created all of this, that passed my passwords to my ex and my ex passed it on to these various clowns around Waterford and they've all basically got involved in a situation that they can't get out of because I won't bow down to their intimidation or their bullying and I won't stop calling out the corruption that they're involved in. I'll state again, I'll absolutely welcome any transparent investigation into anything that's said about me and as long as you look into the allegations that I'm also pointing out and I think that's pretty fair And the fact that this is being covered up and the manner and the effort that's been put into this should highlight what's really being covered up. I will go to a solicitor now to address this kind of like crowd of clowns that are like harassing the in-laws and stuff and hanging around. They can't even go and